Hi, this is Leora Lands, and you're listening to Marketing Mindset Lessons from Hospitality, the podcast where I speak with some of my amazing friends throughout the global landscape of hospitality and marketing. We will share best practices that you can use in your business, whether it's in traditional hospitality or not, whether you are an emerging leader in the industry, or seasoned and wanting to stay fresh and always learning. If you're an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur, you need a marketing mindset. Whether you're marketing a business or yourself, we all need a marketing mindset. We know you're busy, but take a listen and figure out how you can apply this fresh thinking to your world, both professional and personal. Let's all think like a marketer. Hi, everyone. It's Leora Lands, and we're back for another conversation on the Marketing Mindset Podcast, the podcast with the same name as the Marketing Mindset books, the companion set, all related to hospitality. And today we're going to talk restaurants and events all in one. We're going to bring in momentarily my friend Skyler Lewis. Let me share a little bit about Skyler to get started, and then we're going to have a conversation about a platform he created to help the restaurant industry, especially those restaurants that can host events. A very important part of the hospitality landscape, a very important part of the marketing approach too. So Skyler Lewis is the founder of Evently. It's a Boston-based platform that helps independent operators, breweries, restaurants, and event spaces multiply what they can do with events without adding to an already full plate. Love the pun, Skyler. He founded the company after watching beloved neighborhood restaurants close despite being phenomenal, and after experiencing firsthand how fragmented the private event booking process was while organizing group dinners when he was at Harvard Business School. A software solutions architect turned Harvard Business School MBA, Skyler built Evently to make sure the best independent operators have the tools to grow and to stay open. I happened to meet him at a Massachusetts Restaurants United event. It is my pleasure to welcome Skyler Lewis to have this conversation and to learn about this incredible platform that he developed. Hey,
Thank you.
Skyler.
How's it going?
It's
Thank you so
going
much for having me.
good. Thank you so much for having this conversation with me. We actually didn't meet all that long ago, but we clicked instantly. And I'm really happy to have the chance to have you share your passions, your passions for how this happens and what you've built. So tell us how you started Evently and why. And then we're going to get a little bit deeper into the event space, the restaurant space. But you didn't start. You're not a hospitality for sort of foundational person, but you are now.
Yeah. So I guess I was always kind of on the sidelines of the hospitality world. Like I'm a huge foodie, a lot of friends that, went on to start restaurants or work in restaurants. And so I always loved it. And I think just as you mentioned, it was hard to kind of watch them, struggle or, be phenomenal and not really be able to sustain. And kind of before I entered the world, I was always surprised that would happen. I was like, this food's amazing. It looks phenomenal. They're getting awards. How did this happen? And so through my time at business school, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur and make an impact and, kind of blended those two worlds together. When I decided that Evently was something that I was going to plan on doing, I basically set out and just did hundreds of interviews of, restaurant operators and brewery operators, you name it, folks from the owners, the GMs, the event managers, just to see what's really going on the inside and make sure that I'm not trying to solve a problem that's not actually there.
Right.
Things that they've shared is hopefully I can share a little bit of it during this.
Yes.
But it's been wild, and I think we've made some really good progress solving those problems. So
amazing. Was there a particular moment when you thought, I need to do something? Because you use the word impact, and you are someone who cares about making important, responsible impact in people's lives. And so was there some moment where you went, this is ridiculous. I need to do something about this?
Yeah, I think it was a culmination of several kind of data points or moments that kind of drove me in that direction. The first was I was sitting down with the owner who I'd shown a very early version of Evently to. And they got excited and wanted me to sit with their event manager. And during that conversation, what basically came out, which I didn't know at the time, was that they get ghosted about 60% of the time. And so that's work that was happening, that was being done, and 6 out of 10 people that submit an inquiry just disappear.
Make a reservation, you mean? So like, or inquiries for group events at these restaurants.
For group events at the restaurant.
Okay.
And the owner had no idea. And so that was kind of the status quo.
Oh, wow.
What I quickly started doing was asking more and more people, just, hey, what's your ghost rate? And it was between 40 and 60% for almost all of them.
Wow.
And that was a moment where I'm like, the amount of revenue, I mean, we know how good private events and group reservations can be for these businesses. It's predictable revenue, you know exactly how much food you need, how much alcohol you need, what staff needs to be on hand, and so on and so forth. But if you're getting ghosted 60% of the time, or you can't actually bring those in and close at a higher rate, that's a lot of revenue left on the table. And I was like, okay, we can do something about this. So
yeah, and I've heard you use the expression, it's revenue hidden in plain sight. And is that what you're talking about right there?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, that couldn't have been said any better, actually. Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. Private events, event marketing is an approach that I recommend for brands to use also. How did that fit into the concept of event marketing, working with restaurants that you want to protect and keep alive? How do you blend those two together with Evently?
Yeah, so we kind of have two sides of the business. One is providing a suite of tools for the restaurant to, as you mentioned earlier, kind of multiply their ability without having to hire a full events team and so on and so forth. But the other side of that is blending not only the marketing, but also really streamlining the process that their guests and customers will have when they actually get onto their website and try and actually make a group reservation. And so we do several things. One is we help a lot of our partners. We essentially will go through the website, make sure that it's actually screaming like, hey, we do private events, like come here. A lot of people think that they have it tucked behind a contact form or, deep down on their public events website. Like, please, like, reach out if you have any questions. But what we really need to do is shout it from the rooftop saying we do private events.
Right.
That's on your social media, that's on your website, you name it. And then on our side, what we've been doing recently is really driving people to the platform through various, whether it's graduation or holiday parties, and really show them, hey, these places are ready and able to host your event, and they're phenomenal. And you might not have found them because they don't have the marketing budget of one of these giant chains that can do so much more kind of from a presence standpoint, but we help folks, be discovered and eventually book. So it's been really good to see the data so far.
That's great. So Evently is not just a booking platform for the consumer to book their group events at restaurants who are on the platform, but you're also you are a partner for the restaurants to be another marketing boost for them. Not just a distribution channel, but actually effectively giving them marketing recommendations for boosting their presence online.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. We value that a lot. So we essentially include all of our venues in any marketing effort that we do. It's just kind of comes with being on the platform.
Right.
Email campaigns, flyers. We actually have a graduation one going right now, which has been good.
I'm sure.
It's coming in. And so we really want to make sure that we are helping, keep these spots open and drive event revenue.
I can't even imagine how much research went into this while you were in business school. Did the concept come to you while you were in B school, beforehand? Tell us sort of that chronology, because I really want to know what you discovered in your research. But when did the idea come to you? Did the B school piece of it come because you wanted to make this happen, or did it come to you while you were in school studying that?
Yeah, so I like, as I mentioned before, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I didn't really know exactly in which area. Always been interested in the food industry, hospitality, et cetera. And when I was in business school, I was actually, funny enough, I was having a random conversation with a friend, and she said, if you could be anything that you wanted in the world, what would it be? It was just kind of a thought exercise that they had us going through. And she said an event planner. And at the time I was actually planning my wedding. And I was sitting there, I was like, this feels like a lot, like we're doing a lot. And like, from things. Some of that I get. You need like a person there. But then I was thinking like, okay, for a restaurant and to book a dinner, to book a buyout, whatever that may be, why
Right.
is it this difficult? Why is it 20 to 30 emails sometimes just to say this is available, this is how much it costs, and here's the menu that you can choose from.
Right.
And that's kind of where the idea came. I was like, all right, let's start to dig into this. And then from the research standpoint, really just started to look at what tools are out there, had the conversations. I'm a firm believer that you need to talk to the people actually using them and that are struggling with this to figure out, because I think from the outside looking in, you can come up with any reason that you want for why something's inefficient, but until you actually see what's going on, you don't really
Right.
know what to tackle. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. Learned a lot about the industry early on.
So I wanted to ask you about that actually. Did you get any statistics or data, or what did you learn about the private events industry as a whole, or the restaurant events industry? Because a lot of folks, when they think events, it could be at a hotel, it could be a unique venue, but naturally, restaurants are fabulous places to have events. And if a restaurant has the capacity to host events of grander sizes, that's a lot of seats to fill in a restaurant. That's a lot of real estate to have to capitalize on, per person in there. What did you find out about the private event spaces as an
Yeah.
industry?
So what I found out, I think mainly about the restaurants, is that the ones who are treating private events as their own revenue stream and are putting the effort in to not only market it, but they have the private space or they have the private menu or anything like that, they're actually doing the best. It can't be a separate channel. We had a few conversations early on where people would say, well, we have, our table reservation system and that gets people in and then we can kind of like talk to them about it. But the reality is that the events are so different and people are looking
Yeah.
for the higher touch. And so, it is something that needs to be its own concerted effort in the private event space. I think from a hard number standpoint, we talked to restaurants that in my mind were pretty comparable as far as size, space, food style. They have the private room, so on and so forth. And I would talk to one and they're maybe doing $2.5 million a year in private events. And then you talk to another and it's maybe less than $500,000.
Right.
And comparing those two and like what energy are they putting in and what tools are they using and how big is the team, it was pretty insightful as far as where's the gap here. And as you can imagine, the one that was doing a lot had a team of 6 people.
Right.
Not everybody can do that,
Right.
so there's a real gap there.
Wow. We're talking about restaurants right now, but I heard you say earlier that you also talk to craft breweries.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that? Craft breweries and event spaces. Tap rooms are coming up more and more. Even where I live on Long Island, you see more and more tap rooms. Is that a different sort of aspect of the restaurant business too? And what do you see there?
Yeah, I think so. I think what we're seeing from an industry shift is a lot of people are looking for, more casual communal spaces to host their
Mhm.
private events. And I think that breweries and tap rooms really fit that mold pretty naturally. And
Yes.
I also think it's an industry where a lot of people, they started this because it came from pure passion. And like I said, they're wearing 10 hats. They're not only brewing, but they're also bartending and they're trying to figure out a food program and they may not have the food background. They also now have a tap room and want to figure out distribution at the same time. And so there's all of this stuff that they're doing on a daily basis. And private events, they know are important, but it doesn't always translate to them being successful in those spaces. And so what we see a lot from, we have a significant amount of breweries and tap rooms on our platform. And we
Okay.
see a lot of weddings that come through, a lot of like post-wedding after parties and things of that nature. And
Okay.
again, just having those touch points where people are like, oh, my local brewery, my local tap room actually can and will host my event, has been interesting. And I think, just to kind of piggyback on that, I think what we start to see is a flywheel effect of, everything that happens within the community and then getting people to come back for private events. So, essentially, if you have a lot of trivia nights or those public events or things like that in the tap room, those people come in, they love the space, they can even see the theme of a certain event, and then they then turn that into a private event. We've seen, American Idol events at some of our tap rooms that people then will book their own for their 40th birthday party. So much fun during that time. So I think trying to find those things that really bring the community in and get them to keep coming back is huge.
That's amazing. And we're seeing that even just in some of the projects that I'm doing with students, where we want these restaurants to be a hub of the community and to have varying activities on a periodic basis where there's some consistency to be able to be known for bringing folks in. And to your point, and I think this is where we're going, is if that becomes sort of a familiar place or a third spot, then that's where I want to have my event also.
Yeah.
What do you think is the future? Where do you think private restaurant marketing, event marketing is going, based on what you're seeing, based on whether it's through the platform or just the conversations you're having? Where do you think that's headed?
I think it's becoming a significantly more focused effort by businesses. I think they're starting to realize that, some people have already been there, but I think a lot of people are realizing that it can't be a second thought. It has to be something that you are planning around and strategizing, making concerted efforts to drive event revenue. I think, the hot take maybe, but from a private standpoint, especially in the industry, I think it's gotten a little stale. And like people sit down and they say, this is how it's always been done, so this is how we should continue. And I think not only us through Evently, but just in general, if people are putting together these homegrown solutions, I think you have to do things a little bit against the grain right now in order to stand out, in order to, really make sure that people have an easy time finding and booking.
Right.
These are things like, make sure that your pricing is transparent. Like for big days, like sure, if you want to, weigh out your options, absolutely. But the reality is hiding your prices aren't going to get you a Tuesday buyout where, you're not going to have a high utilization rate anyway on a Tuesday most of the time. But showing somebody, brings them in, especially if it's something that you're comfortable doing. These are things like making sure your website is really easy to understand that you're doing private events. A lot of the folks that we work with, they have a pop-up when you get on the page saying like, throwing an exciting party soon, like have it there, right? Descriptions on your Google pages, all these things that kind of put together to really make sure that you are showing people that you do private events and have the ability to be found, regardless if you're on a platform like Evently or anything like that. So
it's boosting that digital presence, for search engine optimization. So it's the digital information and the physical information. Well, I actually was going to ask you, what advice do you have for restaurateurs? But I think you just shared it because, and I love, the hiding the prices, the sort of opaqueness of folks being afraid to share what those pricings are. I actually think that backfires because that usually just tells me, oh, that's going to be too crazy expensive. If they put a number there and I saw it, I wouldn't think it's expensive or not expensive. I'd be like, okay, that's what I got to budget because that's where I want to be. So I do think that backfires.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up. I hadn't thought about it in a while, but when I started Evently and I was doing a lot of these interviews, we not only were talking to the venues, but also people who book these events. And one of the number one reasons why people don't think of restaurants and breweries and all these places as private event spaces, they think of you get married and you go find an event venue and that's kind of it, is because they're like, we don't know how much it costs. We don't know how it's just difficult. I don't want to send, 15 emails. I don't want to be on the phone with somebody. I want to figure this out and like at least have a ballpark, and what we see from industry standards, people reach out from 5 to 10 venues every time they have an event that they're looking to host, through a standard process. I won't dive into the Evently numbers, but they're much better than that.
Good. Well, you should brag about that.
Well, then I'll tell you that we have about an 80% right now for venues that are using Evently. Again, not so much specifically for Evently, but what we've done is we really streamlined that process so that we disincentivize folks to go shop around because they have clear, transparent pricing, clear, transparent availability, clear, transparent offerings, et cetera. And so somebody might have a question that's kind of benign about, hey, can I bring a cake? I know you do your own catering. And so that kind of thing, but that's not a deal breaker in most places. And so they'll lock in the date and then get the information as they can go from there. But, if somebody's sitting down having to spend time talking to 10 venues, then you're talking about who gets back to them fastest, what
Right.
price is the cheapest, so on and so forth. So I do think having that, published in some way, shape, or form streamlines, the customer's experience in a significant way. And honestly gets the people who may not have thought about booking a private event to actually inquire. So
Skyler, you said, I just want to repeat it. Did you say it was an 80% success rate or conversion rate for
Yep.
people who book through Evently for that? So that's great for these restaurants.
Yeah, so we can want somebody to come in from the website and book at an 80% clip.
Amazing. Well, I'm going to just, for pieces of advice from what I heard from you today, for anyone who's in the restaurant space who hasn't focused on events, one, don't hide those prices. Two, talk about the fact that you have events, talk about it online, make sure it's visible on, when we say website, look, a lot of people go to OpenTable or Resi to book their restaurants and not necessarily to a website. So make sure it's there too. Wherever there's digital mention of your name, highlight the event spaces and make sure those descriptions are pretty clear, and maybe consider a platform like an Evently to be able to help serve as your marketing arm to get that out there. And Skyler, on behalf of my love for restaurants and my friends who are restaurateurs, thank you for doing what you're doing, because you're helping us keep such an integral part of our communities sustained and alive by bringing more business to it. And we need our restaurants badly. So thanks for having this conversation.
Of course. Thank you for having me. And looking forward to seeing every restaurant stay open forever, right?
Yes, if only.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Marketing Mindset, Lessons from Hospitality. Marketing Mindset is a production of Think Tank Media and the Hospitality Nexus, the global platform for hospitality education, with resources such as podcasts, articles, and video tutorials. I'm your host, Leora Lands, and if you want to learn more about how we can work together, visit my LinkedIn at Leora Halpern Lands. Remember to order a copy of my debut book, the international bestseller, Developing Your Marketing Mindset, Real-World Lessons from Hospitality, which also won the Business Book of 2025 award from the New England Book Festival. And the newest in the series, the companion book, Marketing Mindset in Motion, inspired by hospitality. Everything you need to think like a marketer for your business, your service, or yourself. Connect with meaning through wellness, sustainability, and community to market with meaning and remember the hospitality. Until next time.